What if the deepest truths you seek aren't found in books or lectures, but in the quiet wisdom of a 92-year-old woman? Have you ever paused long enough to realize that what we chase may be the very thing keeping us from peace? Imagine discovering that the secret to a meaningful life isn't in doing more, but in remembering what truly matters. She was not famous, not a scholar, not someone the world had ever seen on a stage or heard through a microphone. Yet when she spoke, people leaned in. Her voice didn't rise above the noise of the world. It quietly cut through it, sharp as a whisper of truth, slicing through the fog of a world obsessed with noise, status, and show. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Each of your shares is not only a motivation for us, but also contributes to spreading value to the community. If you find this content useful, don't forget to watch the whole video, like, subscribe, and share with someone you think needs to hear this too. She was 92. Her hands told stories her lips didn't need to. Wrinkled and worn, they had held babies, buried loved ones, washed floors, and folded in prayer more times than anyone could count. Her face was a canvas of time etched with deep lines, formed from years of laughter, sorrow, hope, and prayer. She sat still, calm, but there was something in her stillness that carried power. Not the kind of power that forces or demands, the kind that knows. When she began to speak, the room stilled. Young people talk a lot about what they think. She said slowly, each word deliberate. But when you've lived as long as I have, you stop guessing. You start knowing. There was something captivating about her tone, like she was handing out gold one word at a time. She didn't need a title to have authority. She had lived, she had seen, and that kind of wisdom, it doesn't come from books or headlines. It only comes from surviving the storms and finding meaning on the other side. She spoke of a world she once knew, a world with less technology, fewer distractions, and more time around the dinner table. A world that seemed simpler but held its own battles, wars, losses, heartbreaks, hardships. I've seen empires rise and fall, she said, her voice soft but unwavering. Not just countries, but people, families, reputations, dreams. And I've learned, the things we think matter most usually don't. You could hear a pin drop. Even the wind seemed to pause to listen. She wasn't sharing opinions. She wasn't offering vague advice or trendy wisdom. She was speaking from the deep sacred well of experience. And that's what made every word feel like a secret the world had forgotten. She leaned forward, eyes sharp, as if she was about to tell you something you weren't ready for. And maybe you weren't. People today, she whispered, are too busy trying to be seen to ever see. They want their voices heard, but they never listen. They want to go fast, but they don't even know where they're going. She shook her head, not in judgment, but in sorrow. I've seen the world change fast, faster than anyone expected. But the truth? She paused. It hasn't changed at all. And there it was. That moment. The moment when you realize you're not just hearing a story, you're receiving a message. One that could change your life if you're paying attention. She talked about how the world applauds the loud and overlooks the quiet. How people chase after money, beauty, success, until they realize those things can't hold them when they cry at night. Can't fill the emptiness when they feel alone in a crowded room. I've lived long enough to know, she said, that what you see on the outside doesn't always tell the truth about the inside. That line hung in the air like a lantern. She had nothing to gain by impressing anyone. No agenda, no reputation to protect. And that's why it felt so real, so raw, so rare. You might expect a woman in her 90s to be fragile, forgetful, distant. But she was the opposite. Sharp, clear, unapologetically honest. It was almost startling. In a world where people are careful with their words, worried about offense, preoccupied with image, she had none of that. She simply told the truth, and it was refreshing. Like cold water on a hot day, like a voice calling you home. When you're young, she said, you think you have time. You think the pain you feel now won't matter later. That if you just work harder, prove more, win more, you'll be okay. Her eyes softened and sharpened again. But I'm here to tell you, I've stood at gravesides and seen people weep, not for what they lost, but for what they never said, for the moments they missed, the kindness they held back, the love they meant to give but never did. Goosebumps, chills, a lump rising in your throat. Because suddenly it wasn't just her story. It was yours. She wasn't just describing her life. She was holding up a mirror to ours. And what reflected back was uncomfortable but true. You don't know how fast it goes, she said barely above a whisper. One day you're chasing dreams, the next you're looking back, wondering why you ever chased them in the first place. She smiled. Not a smile of sadness, but one of knowing. The kind of smile someone wears when they finally figured out the ending and want to help you find your way before it's too late. I'm 92, she said. I've buried friends, siblings, even my own child. I've seen the sun rise on some of the best days and watched it set on some of the worst. A long pause. But I'm still here, she said. Not because I have everything, but because I found something that this world can't take away. The room leaned in again. What's that? I asked, my voice small. She looked at me with eyes full of you. Faith, she said. Peace and love. The kind that outlives everything else. This was no ordinary conversation. This was sacred. And her words weren't just to be heard. They were meant to be care. Because what she offered was more than wisdom. It was a warning, a gift, a lifeline. And if we're wise, we'll take hold of it before we're the ones looking back, wishing we had listened sooner. Because that, my friends, is a fact, and few men ever truly come to understand it until it's too late. She looked out the window for a long moment before she spoke again. The silence was almost too loud. You could feel the weight of what was coming next, like truth was drawing breath before it landed. Then, in a voice steady and sure, she said, Most people spend their whole lives chasing the wrong things and they don't even know it. It was a simple sentence, but it struck like lightning. Wrong things. You could feel the tension in the room. She didn't say it to condemn, but to awaken. People chase money, she continued, as if it will save them, as if it will make them feel secure or important or finally enough. Her eyes flicked toward me, searching, but it never does. She leaned forward a little, lowering her voice as if letting me in on a sacred truth. Do you know how many rich men I've known who died empty, surrounded by things but starved of love? They had the biggest houses, the fanciest cars, the finest clothes, and not a soul to sit at their table. A chill ran through me. They thought having more meant being more, but in the end, all they had were regrets. She shook her head slowly. And it's not just money, she said. It's recognition, power, approval. People chase applause like it will fill a hole in their soul. Her voice grew more intense, like a fire catching. They worked themselves sick for promotions, for praise, for one more line on a resume. And then, she paused. They find out they climbed the wrong ladder and it was leaning against the wrong wall. That line hit hard because deep down, most of us fear that, don't we? That we're running, striving, sweating for things that one day won't even matter. I've seen it, she said, her voice softening again and again. People who thought if they just reached that milestone, that number in their bank account, that level of success, they'd finally be happy. She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. But the finish line always moves. You get one thing, and suddenly you need something else. You climb one hill, and there's another waiting. That's the trap. She leaned back, a calm certainty in her expression. The world will keep you running forever, but it will never let you rest. The room was quiet, but my heart wasn't because I knew she was right. We chase, we strive, we reach, but we never arrive. And when she said it, it wasn't. Just a wise old woman talking. It was a warning bell, clear, loud, unignorable. She looked at me once more. "Son," she said, "if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole life chasing the wind." She didn't need to say another word. She had already said everything. In that, truth. It clung to the air like smoke, a haunting reminder that chasing the wrong things will never lead you to the right life. She paused for a long time, not because she was searching for the words, but because she knew their weight, then with a calm certainty that made you forget to breathe. She said, "Most people, they don't even know what it means to be rich." My curiosity leaned in before my body could. "What do you mean?" I asked, almost afraid of the answer. She smiled, not with amusement, but with understanding. "They think wealth is what they can count." She said, "what they can stack, store, and show off. But real wealth, it has nothing to do with numbers. It has everything to do with peace." My heart skipped peace. "Yes," she said, as if reading my thoughts. "You can have all the money in the world, but if your soul is restless, you're still poor." She leaned forward, and her voice lowered into something sacred. "I've seen men with millions cry themselves to sleep. I've seen women dressed in diamonds crumble under the weight of loneliness. I've seen powerful people respected, admired, who would trade it all for one day of peace." Her words hung in the air like thunder before the storm. "But then I've also seen people who had almost nothing. A small home, a worn-out coat, a simple life, and yet they smiled like they had everything." You know why I didn't answer? Because deep down I already knew. They had peace in their soul, she said. She rested her hand on her heart. And peace doesn't come from money. It doesn't come from titles or trophies. It comes from knowing who you are and who you belong to. The fire crackled softly beside us, but her words burned even brighter. "True. Strength," she continued, "isn't about muscles or control. It's not about who wins the most arguments or leads the biggest crowd." She looked into the distance, almost remembering someone. "True strength," she whispered, "is surrender. It's faith. It's being able to face life's storms and still stand. Not because you're strong, but because your foundation is." She tapped her hand gently on the Bible resting beside her. "That's where mine comes from," she said. Her voice didn't shake because her faith didn't either. "And happiness," she said, as if peeling back another layer of the world's illusion. "It's not in comfort or convenience or getting everything you want." She leaned back, her eyes soft with both joy and warning. "It's in knowing your life has purpose, that you were made for more than just surviving, that your story is part of something eternal." A long silence followed, not empty, but full. And then she said it, the line that still echoes in my soul. The richest man isn't the one who has the most. The strongest isn't the one who never falls. The happiest isn't the one with the easiest life. She looked me in the eyes. It's the one who walks with peace, lives with faith, and loves with purpose. And in that moment, I knew I had just been given the definition of a life truly worth living. She sat in her chair, her hands folded gently, her voice low but powerful. "Do you want to know what matters?" she asked. The question hung in the air like a thread, pulling me forward. Because deep down, don't we all want to know? She didn't wait for my answer. She didn't need to. I've seen people spend their lives building empires, she said, only to lose the people they were building it for. She paused. They thought if they gave their family everything, they'd be remembered. But their children didn't want the riches. They wanted time. They wanted love. Her voice trembled slightly. Not with weakness, but with truth that hurt to care. They missed the most important part. She looked at me. No judgment in her eyes, just sorrow. "Son," she said gently, You won't be remembered for what you own, not for your house, not for your car, not for how many people liked your photos or praised your name. A lump caught in my throat. You will be remembered, she continued, for how you made people feel, for the love you gave, the kindness you showed, the faith you lived out when no one was watching. I could feel my heart pounding because something in me knew she was right. All my worries, my striving, my plans, they all suddenly felt small. You spend your life thinking impact comes from big things, she said. From titles or money or fame, but that's not how people remember you. She smiled softly. People remember how you looked at them when they were hurting, how you forgave them when they didn't deserve it, how you loved them anyway. Her words were water to a thirsty soul. You think legacy is built through success, she said, but real legacy is built in secret, in kitchens, in hospital rooms, in whispered prayers, in moments no one else ever sees. She looked away for a moment, as if remembering. Someone dear. I've been to many funerals, she said, and I've never heard anyone talk about how nice the person's car was or how many meetings they ran or how much money they had in the bank. A soft laugh escaped her lips, bitter, honest. They talk about how they loved, how they listened, how they made them feel safe, seen, cared for. She leaned forward, eyes shining with something deeper than emotion. Conviction. If you want to live a life that matters, don't build your legacy in stone and gold. Build it in hearts. Her words hit like thunder, echoing, unshakable. The only things that last, she whispered, are love, kindness, and faith. Everything else is dust. And in that moment, everything I thought was important began to shift because she wasn't telling me what to do. She was showing me what would be left when all else faded away. And that truth, it's the one most people only learn when it's too late. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Each of your shares is not only a motivation for us, but also contributes to spreading value to the community. If you find this content useful, don't forget to watch the whole video, like, subscribe, and share with someone you think needs to hear this too. She looked out the window again, her eyes distant, as if watching time itself drift by. Then she spoke softly, but with a gravity that made the air feel still. People live like they have forever. The words didn't shout, but they echoed. They think they have time to say the things they should have said yesterday. Time to love deeper, to forgive sooner, to make things right. She shook her head slowly. But time, she whispered, is the biggest lie this world tells us. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy. I didn't know how to respond, but I didn't need to. She kept going because there was more I needed to hear. I've seen people plan their futures down to the last detail. Retirements, dream homes, grand vacations, and in a moment it all changed. Her fingers traced the fabric on the arm of her chair, not nervously, but thoughtfully, like each movement stirred a memory. One day, she said, they were laughing. The next, they were gone. My breath caught, not because it was new information, but because it was truth. And truth doesn't need to be new to be devastating. She turned to me again, eyes deep with lived sorrow. Time doesn't wait for anyone. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It doesn't knock before it takes. Her voice grew quiet, almost like a confession. And that's what breaks my heart the most. People think they can put off the most important things, that there will always be a later. I felt my chest tighten. How many apologies had I delayed? How many words of love had I left unspoken? She looked at me, and though her expression was gentle, her words came like a sharpened blade. Don't wait until it's too late to forgive. Don't wait to say I love you. Don't wait to let go of bitterness. Don't wait to kneel and make peace with your Creator. Her hand rested over her heart. I've seen too many people leave this world with regrets, not for what they did, but for what they never got around to doing. She drew in a breath. They thought there'd be time. That line broke something open in me. We live like we're invincible, like the clock will always reset, like we have tomorrow in our back pocket. But we don't. She leaned back slowly, her gaze steady. If you're holding on to something that doesn't matter, let it go. Her voice trembled now, just slightly. And if you've been waiting to live like this, life means something. Stop waiting. Do it now. She wasn't just sharing a truth. She was sounding an alarm. Because when your time comes, and it will come, the only question that will matter is, did you use your time for what truly counts? And if you haven't, she paused, then change that while you still can. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in slowly, as if drawing strength from something unseen. Then she spoke, and her voice carried a stillness that made everything else fade. "There's something I've learned in all my years," she said. "Something most people never understand until they're broken." Her eyes opened, steady and calm. "It's this. You can't hold peace and fear in the same heart. One will always push the other out." The words caught me off guard. I had never thought of it that way, but I felt them sink deep. "You see," she continued, "people spend their lives trying to control everything, their future, their finances, their reputation, even their pain." She sighed, her hands folding gently in her lap. "But control is an illusion." She looked me square in the eyes. "And fear feeds on that illusion. The more you try to hold on, the more afraid you become of losing it." I sat still, struck by the truth. "How many people do you know," she asked, "who wake up anxious, go to bed restless, and spend every moment in between worrying about things they can't fix?" I nodded slowly, more than I wanted to admit. "And how many of them?" She continued, "Trust God with the parts they can't control." She didn't wait for an answer. She already knew it. "That's the problem," she said. "People want peace, but they don't want surrender. They want answers, but they don't want faith." She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "But peace doesn't come when everything is perfect. It comes when you trust the one who holds what you can't see." The simplicity of her words only made them heavier. And then she said something I'll never forget. "Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to trust God even when you're afraid." My chest tightened because I had been there, terrified of the unknown, clinging to control, praying for peace while refusing to let go. She nodded as if she saw through me. "Son," she said, "you can either carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, or you can give it to the one who made the world." That line cracked something open in me. How long had I been carrying what was never mine to carry? She smiled. "Now, gentle and knowing. The peace I have," she said, "didn't come from an easy life. It came from a faithful God. I've been through storms that should have crushed me, but He held me." She touched her chest lightly. "And because of that, I don't live in fear. I don't live in panic. I don't worry about tomorrow." She leaned back, eyes closing again. "Because I know who holds tomorrow." A quiet fell over the room, not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that feels holy. Because when she spoke of faith, it didn't sound like religion. It sounded like freedom. And that is a kind of peace this world will never understand. The room felt quiet now. Too quiet. Not from emptiness, but from reverence. And then she said it softly, as if revealing a sacred truth she'd been waiting a lifetime to share. "When I'm gone," she whispered, "I don't want people to remember what I had. I want them to remember what I gave." That sentence hung in the air like the final note of a beautiful song. Not loud, not flashy, but unforgettable. She looked at me, her gaze steady and sure. "They won't talk about the house I lived in, or the clothes I wore, or the money I saved." Her hands rested gently in her lap, worn and weathered from decades of work and sacrifice. They'll talk about the way I made them feel, whether I listened, whether I forgave, whether I showed up when it mattered most. She paused and her voice dropped to a near whisper. That is the only legacy that lasts. Goosebumps crawled up my arms. Because we all think about it, don't we? What we'll leave behind, how we'll be remembered, but most of us get it wrong. We think it's in the big things, the grand gestures, the milestones that get framed and celebrated. But she was telling me something deeper, something truer. It's not the trophies or titles. She said, it's the small moments of love, the quiet choices to be kind, the times you could have turned away, but didn't. She leaned forward slightly. And son, let me tell you, people never forget kindness. I nodded slowly, feeling every word. Because the truth is, years from now, most won't remember our job titles, our salaries, or the number of likes we got on a post, but they'll remember if we were there when they needed us. They'll remember the way we smiled at them when no one else did. They'll remember the way we forgave when it would have been easier to stay angry. They'll remember, she said, whether you love with strings or without them. Her voice grew softer. And the funny thing is, the things this world tells you are important, they fade fast. She smiled. Not bitterly, but with clarity. I've seen the richest people be forgotten within months of passing, but the ones who loved well, their names live on in stories, in laughter, in memories passed down. She looked out the window again, her eyes catching the light. That's what I want, she said. Not a monument, not a spotlight, just to be remembered as someone who loved well. I felt my throat tighten because suddenly I wasn't thinking about her legacy. I was thinking about mine. And maybe you are too. Because in the end, what we give, the love, the grace, the kindness is all that will remain. And that, my friend, is the kind of legacy that echoes long after we're gone. She didn't speak in riddles. And there was no need to decode her words like a puzzle. There were no complicated philosophies to wrap your mind around, no tangled webs of thought that left you spinning in circles, no clever metaphors tucked neatly into every sentence, no ornate or high-sounding phrases designed to impress the room or disguise the message beneath layers of intellectual bravado. She didn't speak to be admired. She spoke to be understood, and somehow that was the most surprising thing of all. Her wisdom wasn't dressed up or dramatized. It wasn't loud or flashy or seeking attention. It was simple, but not small, not even close. It was the kind of truth that didn't just pass through your ears and drift away. It rooted itself inside you. You didn't just hear it. You felt it in your chest, in your gut, in your gut, in your bones. Like a memory that didn't belong to you but still felt as if it had always been there, like something ancient and familiar that had been waiting quietly to be recognized and had finally returned home. She looked at me then, her face calm, her presence steady. Her eyes were soft, but there was a kind of quiet strength behind them, something that made you feel safe, seen, and just a little more whole. You know why people miss it? She asked, her voice low and steady. I tilted my head, raising my eyebrows slightly, leaning in without even realizing I had. It's because they think truth has to be complicated, she said. They think the answers are always hidden, buried beneath layers of struggle or tucked away in some grand success, some distant finish line, or locked behind doors only opened by profound discovery. They're always searching far and wide, climbing ladders, chasing degrees, collecting things, hoping one day they'll stumble across it. She paused for a moment, letting the silence settle like dust in a still room. But what they don't realize, she continued, is that truth was never hiding. It's been here the whole time, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be remembered. She offered a soft, knowing smile, one of those rare expressions that held both tenderness and truth. But the real answers, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, as if she didn't want to disturb the quiet wisdom hanging in the air between us. They've always been right in front of us. We just don't always see them. I sat still, hands folded, in my lap, allowing her words to settle into the silence. There was something in the way she spoke, not just the content, but the calm certainty in her tone that made me want to listen. Really listen with more than just my ears. Love, she went on, her voice smooth and unwavering. Gratitude, forgiveness, faith. These aren't riddles we have to solve. They're not new age trends that come and go with popularity. And they're certainly not goals you earn after climbing some grand ladder of success or wisdom. She paused, her eyes soft, her breath steady, like someone sharing a sacred truth passed down through generations. They're not trophies you win once you've conquered the world or yourself. Her tone carried a gentle weight like a lullaby that didn't just soothe, but awaken something forgotten inside. They're simple, she said slowly, so simple that the world in its noise and rush and hunger for more constantly forgets them. She turned to the window, the afternoon light casting a soft glow across her face. Her gaze stretched far beyond the trees and rooftops as if she were looking into memories or possibilities not yet born. I've watched people pour themselves into the pursuit of knowledge, status, even spiritual enlightenment, believing that if they just reach far enough, if they just push a little harder, they'll finally touch peace. Her eyes met mine again, clear and grounded. But peace, she said, her voice quieter now. Intimate peace doesn't play hide and seek. It doesn't vanish when you fall short. And it doesn't wait until you've earned it. It's always there, waiting in the quiet spaces. The everyday moments we're usually too distracted to feel. Her words didn't hit like thunder or lightning. They arrived like soft rain, gentle, unassuming, but deeply needed. They didn't demand to be remembered, but somehow I knew I always would. And then in the quiet of that moment, it hit me like a wave. This woman, in her calm, unhurried way, had come to understand something that many people spend their entire lives chasing, often without ever catching it. She hadn't come to this realization through noise or chaos, not through racing to the next milestone or endlessly striving for more. No, she had arrived at this truth by doing the opposite, by slowing down, by pausing long enough to notice the details most of us overlook. She had found clarity not by doing more, but by doing less and doing it with intention. Her eyes softened, and she spoke with the kind of gentleness that made every word feel sacred. People spend years, even decades, chasing happiness. She said they chase it through success, money, status, relationships, believing that once they arrive at the next big thing, then they'll be happy. But true happiness, it doesn't come from acquiring more. It's born out of gratitude, out of noticing what you already have and choosing to appreciate it, even when it's imperfect. She paused, her hands resting loosely in her lap. They search everywhere for love, thinking it's something to be earned or found in someone else's arms. But real love, it lives in the act of giving, of being present for someone, of showing up, even when there's nothing in it for you. We think love is something we receive, but the deepest kind is something we give without condition. Her voice lowered, thoughtful. Now, they long for peace, but the truth is, peace doesn't come from controlling every outcome or having life go exactly as planned. It comes when you finally let go, when you stop gripping so tightly and start trusting that God has a plan bigger than your fears. That's when peace finds you in surrender, not control. Then she leaned back in her chair, her words lingering in the air like the final notes of a song. There was no urgency in her tone, just quiet conviction. It's not hard to find what really matters, she said softly. It's just easy to miss it because we're always looking too far ahead or too far behind. And life is happening right here, right now. That last sentence hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for, because how many of us are living like we're waiting for permission to begin, waiting for the perfect job, the perfect partner, the perfect moment to start really living, to start loving fully, to start appreciating what we already have instead of longing for what we don't, to stop rushing and finally be still. In that moment, I realized she wasn't offering some complex philosophy or lofty ideal. She was giving me something far more rare, a simple, beautiful truth, that the secret to a meaningful life isn't buried beneath layers of ambition or hidden in some grand achievements. It's found in the way we speak to a stranger, in the patience we give to a child, in the quiet thank you whispered before bed, in the peace that grows when we finally learn to let go. It's not about adding more. It's about noticing more and choosing again and again to live with intention and love. Because in the end, the things that matter most are never loud. But they are always there waiting for us to pay attention in whether or not you choose to forgive. Even when your heart is still aching. Even when the pain feels fresh and undeserved. In the quiet decision to wake up each morning with gratitude in your chest. Even when everything around you feels messy, uncertain, or far from the life you once imagined. It's not about finding something new, she said gently, her voice barely above a whisper, like a secret meant only for those ready to hear it. It's about remembering what you already knew. Before the noise, before the pressure, before the world slowly taught you to forget. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there in silence, feeling something deep within me stir. A truth, not just heard but felt. Because those are the kinds of truths that don't come and go with passing moments. They settle into your bones. They follow you into the quiet spaces. They echo in the back of your mind when you're unsure, when you're lost, when you're standing at the edge of giving up. They change how you see things, how you see yourself, how you see the world. And maybe, just maybe, those truths aren't revelations at all. Maybe they're homecoming, gentle reminders of what we've known all along, the kind of truths we've been waiting to return to, the ones that make us whole again. In a world that moves too fast, the quiet wisdom of a 92-year-old woman reminds us of something deeply important. What truly matters in life isn't what we own, but how we love, what we believe, and how we live. We spend so much time chasing wealth, recognition, and comfort, believing that those things will finally bring us peace, but real peace, the kind that lasts, comes not from what's in our hands, but what's in our hearts. It's found in faith, in kindness, and in the love we give to others. Not someday, but now. Time isn't promised. And in the end, it's not our titles, trophies, or bank accounts that people remember. It's the way we made them feel, the way we forgave, the way we showed up when it mattered most. So take a moment today to reflect. Live simply, love deeply, and never put off what your heart knows is right. If this message touched you, please share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your wisdom too. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next story that speaks to the soul. Let's keep walking this journey together.